Well, I mean, different orchestras, every orchestra is different because it's, of course, made up of different players. I mean, right there, right off the bat, you can't, no two orchestras are equal in the world. So, I think that in judging a competition, and I have to admit I've never had to judge a competition of orchestras, although I've had to adjudicate orchestras for, say, an assessment, and that's mostly at the public school system or at the public school level. You have to kind of go in with the ears that you'll have players there who are at a particular level in their development. So you can't expect to hear the Vienna Philharmonic or the Berlin Philharmonic when you're adjudicating an ensemble, especially a young group. And when I go into a rehearsal with a conservatory level orchestra, your expectations have to be very different from going, say, in front of a professional orchestra. So, you can't, it's not realistic, I think, to assume that you're going to make an orchestra sound like another orchestra. Just simply because the players are not at that level yet, perhaps. So I think that in a competition like this, or adjudicating an ensemble, you have to, of course, there are certain levels or layers in terms of what you're expecting to hear. So obviously one of them is being prepared, playing the right notes with the right rhythms. That's a sort of a very fundamental expectation. Playing in tune with each other, coordinating, making sure things are aligning properly. So that's all very technical. So that probably will be an important aspect of what you're judging or what you're critiquing. But then I think that what's going to make the difference is what else are you hearing in addition to all of that? So what is that next extra step that an ensemble is able to produce, and are they able to capture the essence of a particular piece? And I think that it would be interesting to see how that all unfolds. You're going to have probably several orchestras that are at a similar level, and then others that are maybe not as proficient. Ultimately, I think, it's not going to come down to who plays the fastest, loudest, and more in tune with each other, but is an orchestra capturing, I think, the essence of a particular piece? Do they understand what they're playing? What is the subtext, and what's the intended feeling, or that you are trying to convey? Because just to play perfectly only achieves maybe 50-60% of the job, and then you now need to communicate something else. So, I mean, I think, and that kind of is similar to, I think, my approach with my students, or when I hear the newer students come in and audition for a placement in the ensemble, or audition for consideration to enter the program, it's not so much, where they're at. Obviously, yes, you need to make sure that there is some proficiency for the student to be able to cope with the demand or the rigor of the program. So you have to be at a certain level to survive that. But another thing is then, what else is that young player communicating something else with their instrument? Is there a voice that we can recognize? I think that's what's important to me. It's not because the technique, you can work it. If you're a hard worker and you have a good teacher, you can make strides. But this sort of innate instinct, the musical instinct, has to be there. And for some musicians, it'll be more apparent than with others. And you kind of nurture that, I think. With an orchestral sound, again, there's so many variables. So, I don't think that necessarily when you hear an orchestra performing and there is a cracked note or a wrong entrance doesn't necessarily disqualify the performance. I think it's just because you're performing live, and then these things happen in performance. We're not machines. So, but I think at the end of the day, I need to kind of hear. I would like to hear. Does the orchestra as a unit understand what they're trying to communicate with the work? I think that'll be important. It'll be interesting to see. You talk about wow moments. Yeah, there are wow moments when For me, there are wow moments with my orchestra at the conservatory when I know where they started, and then I can hear the end product, and then I see how far they've gone. And it's a wow moment for everybody, because I feel like, okay, we started not understanding what we're trying to do, but now we've gone through the process and it culminates into this. And that's always a wow moment for me, because you work so hard to try to achieve a common goal. Of course, I'm a teacher to them, so 99% of the time, it'll be a first experience with a particular work for most of the students. So that's a fascinating process for me. It's very different than going to a professional orchestra who's done the standard rep dozens of times with different conductors. That in itself, it is a wonderful experience, of course, but very different from bringing a group of very young players who are doing something for the first time, and then you feel like you are giving them the opportunity to experience a particular work. That itself is very gratifying as well.